Okay, so here we are inside of Photoshop, and the document that I'm using is 1920 by 1080 pixels, and I'm using a black background. You can use any size or color that you want to, though. So the first thing that we're going to do is create our sun. So over here in the Tools panel, I'm going to select the Ellipse tool. If yours is not visible because you have a different layout, go ahead and hold down Shift and just keep pressing U over and over, and you will scroll through the different shape tools. With the Ellipse tool selected, notice that you have these different options up here on top now. In the drop-down menu, make sure that Shape is selected. Any fill color is fine for now. And in the Stroke option, make sure that Stroke is turned off by selecting the white rectangle with the red slash. Okay. I'm going to choose a spot anywhere on my canvas, hold down Shift, and click and drag. Notice in the Layers panel that it created this new layer. I'm going to double click on the title Ellipse 1, and I'm going to rename that Sun. Okay, now I'm going to save the document by holding down Command or Control and pressing S. You can also come up here to File and just hit Save. Okay, now I want to create a new layer and add a line pattern, and we can use that line pattern to cut out the lines in this sun. And to do that, I'm going to hit Command Shift N or Control Shift N, and we'll name this layer Cut Lines. Now I'm going to select my rectangle shape tool. Again, if this isn't visible because you have a different layout, hold down Shift and just keep pressing U until you get to your rectangular shape tool. Up here in the options, make sure that, again, that shape is selected. And for the fill, just change it to a different color. I'll just make this one white. And again, make sure that stroke is turned off. Up here in the top of my canvas on the left side, I'm going to click and drag and just draw out a long rectangle. Notice that the shape is selected and that also my cut lines layer is selected in the layer panel. What I want to do is perform a step and repeat. So I'm going to hold down Command Option or Control Option and hit T. Okay, notice the bounding box up here changed. Now I'm going to hit the arrow key a few times and just arrow down about this far. Just make sure that you have some space in between your two shapes, and then hit Enter or Return. Okay, now I'm going to hit Command Option Shift or Control Alt Shift and just hold those down and hit T over and over again, and just create a whole bunch of lines going down my canvas. The beauty of this is that all of these shapes are all on one layer. Now I'm going to select the Move tool, so you can just hit V or click on this top icon here in your tool panel. Then I'm going to come up here to Edit, Transform, and choose Perspective. Now I'm going to grab this corner box here and just click and drag in. Like so. Once you get it where you want to, go ahead and just hit Return or Enter. Alright, now I'm going to select the Sun layer in the Layers panel and drag that layer up above the Cut Lines layer. Then I'm going to move the sun around until I get the lines to line up where I want them to be. Okay, now, with the Sun layer selected in the Layer panel, I'm going to hover the cursor over the thumbnail of the Cut Lines layer, but I'm not going to click on it yet. Okay, now I'm going to hold down Command or Control and then click on that thumbnail. Notice that I've selected all of the lines from the shape layer, but I have the sun layer selected. Okay, now I'm going to come down here to the rectangle with the circle and hover over that, and you'll see the tooltip will say Add Layer Mask. Okay, I'm going to click on that. Now I'm going to come up here to the Cut Lines layer and turn the eyeball off so that the cut lines are now invisible. Okay, right now I'm going to hit Command S or Control S to save my document. Okay, next I want to fill in the top part of the sun because I only want the lines to be on the bottom half of it. So make sure that the mask thumbnail is selected, not the layer thumbnail here, but the mask thumbnail. I'm going to come over here to the Marquee tool and select the rectangular marquee. You can also hit M. And if it's not visible, or if you're selecting a different marquee tool, hold down Shift and just keep pressing M until the rectangular marquee tool is selected. Now I'm going to click and drag over my sun. Again, make sure that the mask thumbnail is selected. I'm going to select my brush tool here in the tool panel. You can also hit B. All right, so make sure your foreground color here is set to white. If it's not, you can click on it and just drag the circle into the corner and hit OK. Now, let's see. I'm going to select my paintbrush options up here and make sure that my brush is fairly large, around 100 pixels or so, and that hardness is set to 100. And then I'm going to just paint in here. There we go. Now I'm going to hit Command D to deselect. I'm going to hit V to select my move tool up here. And I can just move this sun wherever I want. And I'll put it right about here. And I'm going to hit Command or Control A. And then come up here to my Align options. And the second one in is the Align Horizontal Centers. I'm going to click on that. Now my sun is in the very center of my canvas. I'm going to hit Command or Control D again to deselect. And now I'm going to hit Command or Control S to save. Okay, now let's go ahead and add a color gradient to our sun here. So what I'm going to do is drag in this color palette image here. And don't worry if you don't have this. I'll give you the hex numbers so you can follow along using the exact same colors. And I'll go ahead and just move this over to the side like so that we can see our sun. Now I'm going to select the sun layer again. I'm going to make sure that I am not selecting the mask, but that I am selecting the thumbnail here. Okay, so not the mask, but the thumbnail on the sun layer. Okay, now in the layers panel, I'm going to come down and choose Effects, Gradient Overlay. Okay, mine's set to white right now. Yours will be set to whatever you were using the last time you were using your gradient overlays. And let's see here. So blending mode set to normal, opacity 100%, style linear, angle 90 degrees. Now I'm going to choose the gradient color picker here. The left and right boxes down here are your color stops. I'm going to select the left color stop, and then down here I'm going to click on the color picker. Now I can select any color that I want by moving this little circle around in the color picker, but I can also hover over any color and you'll see my cursor changes to this eyedropper. And I'm going to select an orange right here and click. If you want to follow along exactly, when your color picker is open, type in EE3A00 and hit OK. Next, choose the color stop on the right side, click on the color picker here, and this time I'm going to grab this yellow color. Okay, so if you want to follow along, in the color picker, type in FF9F27 and hit OK to commit the color picker, and then hit OK to commit the gradient overlay, and then hit OK to commit to that layer style. Now I'm going to turn off the visibility of my color palette layer, and then I'm going to hit Command or Control S to save. Okay, so next let's create our grid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to File and select New. I'm going to create a new document that is 50 pixels by 50 pixels, and then hit Create. Now I'm going to hit Command or Control plus a couple of times just to increase my canvas size. All right, I'm going to create a new layer now by hitting Command or Control Shift N, and we'll call this new layer Grid and hit OK. All right. I'm going to turn off the visibility of the background layer by selecting this eyeball here in the Layers panel. Now with the grid layer selected, I'm going to hit Command or Control A to select the entire canvas. Come up here to Edit and select Stroke. 1 pixel width. The location needs to be on the inside. All right, don't worry about the color for now. Whatever color you have set here is just fine. I'm going to hit OK. Okay, next I'm going to come up here to Edit and choose Define Pattern. We'll call this pattern White Grid 1. Now, going back over to our original document, I'm going to create a new layer. So that's Command or Control Shift N, and we'll call this layer Grid. Okay, with the grid layer still selected, I'm going to come up here to Edit and choose Fill. The content should be Pattern. The custom pattern here, I'm going to choose the last pattern option here, and that's the one I just created. It'll always be the last one here, okay? And if you hover over it, you can see the name, and you can see it's White Grid 1. And choose OK. So there we go, there's our grid. So now I'm going to hit Command or Control S to save. Okay, now I want to change this to a purple color. So I'm going to turn my color palette back on so that I have this color available. And again, don't worry, I'll give you the hex number so you can follow right along. Then I'm going to, with the grid layer selected, come down to the bottom and choose Effects, Color Overlay. So just open up the color box here. And the color is 970D77, which is this color right here on my color palette image. Okay, so go ahead and type that in and hit OK to commit to that color and OK to commit the layer style. All right, I'm going to turn off my color palette layer again. Okay, so now that our grid's created, what I want to do is make sure my Move tool is selected, come up here to Edit, Transform, and choose Perspective once again. Okay, so I'm going to hold down Command or Control and hit minus just to zoom out a little bit. And with Perspective still selected, I'll be grabbing this bottom corner and just dragging it out like so. Just something like that. And then I'll hit Return or Enter to commit that change. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come up here and hover over this transform control right here, this little white box in the center on top. Hold down Shift and then click and drag. Okay, that way the bottom stays fixed and I'm just dragging the top down. All right, and I'm going to drag it below the sun. As soon as I have this where I want, I'm going to hit Return or Enter to commit that change. Then I'm going to hit Command S or Control S to save. Okay, things are looking good. So now what I want to do is add a glow effect to this grid floor. So with the grid selected, I'm going to come down to the bottom of the layers panel and select Effects, Outer Glow. So again, opacity set to 100, blend mode normal. I'm going to select the color picker here and I'm going to use that same purple color. So I'm going to type in 970D77 and hit OK. The spread and the size settings here might be different for you depending on the size of your grid and the size of your document. So just play around with these a little bit until you get it where you want it. I want the grid to still look a little sharp. I just want a little bit of glow around it. That's going to work just fine. So I'm going to hit OK. If I come over here to the grid layer, I can select this eyeball here to turn off the outer glow. You can see that makes a big difference. All right, so once again, I'm going to hit Command S or Control S to save. Okay, so next what I'm going to do is create some mountains in here. And in order to do that, first I need to have a black background on the floor so that when I stretch the mountains, we can't see through the grid. So first I'm going to come down here to the background layer and just turn that eyeball off, okay, so that we can see what we're doing. Then I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to select Command or Control, Shift N, and we'll just call this Black Floor. And then I'm going to just hit the letter D. And what that did is that changed the foreground color to black right here. It changes the foreground to black and the background to white here. Okay, the default colors. And you can also hit X to flip between the two. Okay, so anyway, hit D and hit Option Delete or Alt Backspace. And that's one way to fill in the entire layer with black. Then I'm going to grab the black floor layer and drag it down below the grid layer. Now, with the black floor selected, with my Move tool selected, I'm going to just hold down Shift and just arrow down. So just hit the arrow key, and if you hold down Shift, it just moves faster. And I'm just going to line it up here as close as I can. I'm going to hit Command or Control plus just to get right up here, and then arrow down so where it's lined up exactly where I want it here. Then I'm going to hit Command or Control minus to zoom out. Now what I want to do is I want to join these two together, but instead of just merging these two layers, I'm going to create a smart object just in case I need to make some adjustments later. So with the black floor layer selected, hold down Shift and select the grid layer. Notice they're both selected now. I'm going to right click and choose Convert to Smart Object. All right, now this is working together as one layer. But if I need to make any adjustments to this layer, I can still double click on the thumbnail here and open up this as a smart object, and I can still adjust my grid and adjust my floor. Coming back over to the original document again, I'm going to once again hit Command or Control S to save. So let's create the mountains now. I'll go ahead and turn my black background down for now. Okay, this is just temporary. We're going to create a sunset gradient here in a little bit. With the grid selected, I'm going to come up here to Edit and choose Puppet Warp. Okay, and then up here we have the settings for the Puppet Warp. Next to Density, I'm going to choose More Points. Now notice my cursor is changed to this little thumbtack, and anywhere where I drop one of these pins I can then stretch it. I don't want to warp this area here, I just want the mountains on the sides. So I'm going to drop some pins just along the center here, almost like there's a road going right to the sun. All right, and if you drop these pins, it's going to prevent this area from warping too much. Okay, and I want to make sure and put some along the horizon line here. Next, I'm just going to have some fun by dropping some pins all over the place to make some mountains. So I'm just going to pick a few spots here and just drop some pins. Some I'll pull into peaks and some I'll push down into valleys. And definitely drop a couple along the horizon line here so that I can push and pull those pins. I'm going to drop some pins along the edge here just to help control how much this grid is going to stretch. So it's actually fun to take a while working with this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, now that I have this side set, I'm going to go ahead and just skip ahead and do the other side real quick so you don't have to watch me do that. I'm just going to do that same thing, drop a whole bunch of pins. Okay, so here we go. I just got a whole bunch of pins over on this side, and you can actually drop more pins after we start warping. Here's the fun part. So now, everywhere we've dropped a pin, if you hover over it, your cursor changes, and you can actually grab that pin and then stretch it. So I'm going to just pull it up like that. All right, so I'm just making some mountains. All right, and let's see. I'll pull this one up. Maybe I'll pull this one down a little bit. So we got a little valley going in here. Pull another one here. Okay, get some peaks, kind of just get some hilly terrain going here. All right, just kind of mixes it up a little bit. Okay, notice though, as I stretch this around, this area is not stretching. That's because we placed all these pins around here to kind of protect this area. All right, let's come over to the other side here. I think what I'll do is play around with these for a little while and just skip ahead so you don't have to watch me just pushing and pulling peaks and valleys. Okay, so now that I have all my pins pushed and pulled and everything's warped, I'm just going to hit return or enter to commit those changes. And there we go. We've got some kind of rough terrain here. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I think with the grid layer selected and my move tool selected, I'm just going to arrow down and move the grid just a little bit. Okay, that way the sun is just above the horizon line here. Okay, next let's go ahead and create a reflection of the sun down here on the grid floor. So with the sun layer selected, I'm going to hit Command or Control J to duplicate that layer. Now you can see in the Layers panel we have this sun copy layer. Okay, now I'm going to come up here to Edit, Transform, Flip Vertical. Alright, now I'm going to hold down Shift and just arrow down and move the sun to the bottom here. And of course this layer is behind my grid, so I'm going to grab the sun copy layer and move it up here above my grid floor. All right, there we go. Now I'm going to come up here to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And it's going to ask if you want to convert to a smart object. Just say yes. Okay, and then there's a nice blur. Let's see. I don't want to blur it. I want to blur it quite a bit, but I want to retain these lines. You know, if I go way up here, we totally lose the lines. So something like that. And hit OK. Then I'm going to come over here to my opacity, make sure the sun copy layer is selected, and just turn the opacity down. Turn mine down to it looks like 28%. All right, looking good. I'm going to go ahead and hit Command or Control S to save. All right, now let's create a sunset gradient background. So I'm going to hit Command or Control Shift N to create a new layer, and we'll call this layer Sunset. And hit Option Delete or Alt Backspace to fill that area in with black once again. All right, now I'm going to grab the sunset layer and move it down here all the way just on top of our locked background layer. And then with the sunset layer selected, I'm going to go to the bottom of the layers panel and choose Effects, Gradient Overlay once again. All right, and right now you can see that it has the gradient saved from our sun colors, but that's just fine. Let's see, opacity set to 100%, blend mode normal, style linear, angle 90 degrees, and then I'm going to click on the gradient color picker here. Okay, now these two colors we're going to go ahead and use, so I'm going to move these over like so, and I'm going to go ahead and switch these two. All right, and if you have changed yours, I'll go ahead and give you the hex numbers again. So with the left color stop here. I'm going to select the colors picker and go ahead and type in F9, F27. Hit OK. With the next color stop selected, click on the color picker and type in EE3A00. Click OK. All right, let's add that purple again. So I'm going to just click right here next to the two color stops and create a third color stop. I'm going to select the color picker. Go ahead and type in 970D77. All right, let's add one more color stop. I'm going to just click somewhere over here and hit my color picker. And this time I'm going to just grab the circle and just pull it all the way over to the corner so that it's black. Hit OK. All right, you can see that our sunset mainly looks black, but we can grab these color stops and then move them around. Okay, so I'm going to move this one to the far side here. I'm going to grab this one and just move it closer like so. That way we just have a little bit of black up here. You can also grab these diamonds in between the two and adjust the gradient. See that? I'm going to move this one over a bit, move the orange over, and just play around with these until you get something that you like. Okay, I don't quite like how the bottom of the sun's disappearing, but I want a little, something like that. I think that looks really nice. So I'm going to stick with that, and I'll go ahead and hit OK. And then I'll hit OK to commit this layer style. All right, so things are looking good so far. Let's see. I want to actually move my grid floor down a little bit. So I'm going to select the grid floor layer here, and I'm just going to hold down Shift and arrow down a couple of times. And then I'm going to need to adjust everything now. So I'll take my sun copy here, the reflection, and move that down a little bit, maybe a couple of times there, like that. Yeah, that looks good. And then, let's see. One thing that's kind of bothering me is I'd like this grid line right here to line up with the center of the sun, so it just needs to move over a little bit. And the reason why is I'd like to put just a little thing of white light right here, and I'd like that to be centered, okay? So I'm going to just select the grid layer and just arrow over it a couple of times. So I'll just hit the right arrow a few times. Just kind of move that over. All right, that looks good, just like that. I'm gonna hit Command or Control S one more time to save. And then let's go ahead and just put a little bit of light right here. So I'm gonna create a new layer again. I'm gonna make sure that I'm above my sunset reflection, and I'll hit Command Shift N or Control Shift N, and we'll just call this Light 1. Now I'm going to select my line tool. So just like we selected the ellipse shape tool and the rectangle shape tool, if you just hold down Shift and just keep pressing U, eventually you'll hit your line tool. And there's my line tool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is turn on my color palette image again. With the light layer selected and the line tool selected, I'm going to come up here to my fill option, click on that, and I'll click right here on this far right icon, which will open up the color picker. And then I'm going to just pick that blue color right there. All right, so it's 00778C, and hit OK. Now I can shut off my color palette image, and then I'm going to just come down here to the horizon line, click and drag. And if I hold down Shift, it'll snap to a horizontal line, okay? And just something like that, and let go. All right, it's kind of hard to see right now, but if I click over here, you can see that I have this line now. And I'll go ahead and hit Command or Control plus and zoom in. Okay, so with my light layer selected here, I'm going to select the Move tool again, and then just hit arrow up a couple of times and just get it right on the horizon there, okay? Next, in the bottom of the Layers panel, with the light layer selected, I'm going to hit Effects, Outer Glow. All right, so the settings should be set from last time, but again, blending mode normal, opacity 100%, and then I'm going to click on the color picker here, and I'm going to type in that same blue once again, so 00778C, and hit OK. Okay, so now you can adjust the spread and the size, and I just kind of want this glowing line here. Something like that. That'll work, and I'll hit OK. All right, now I'll hit Command minus to zoom out. All right, so with the Move tool selected and the light layer selected in the Layers panel, then you can kind of arrow around and just get this set up where you want. I'm going to just line it up right in the center here, like so. All right, you can come over here to your Show Transform Controls up on top and turn that off so you can see how this is looking. Next, what I want to do is create another layer, so I'll hit Command or Control, Shift N, and we'll call this Light 2. And before I go any further, I'm going to hit Command or Control S to save. Okay, so next I'm going to hit D to make sure that white and black is selected over here, and then I'll hit X so that I can change my foreground color to white. Then I'm going to hit Shift U until the Polygon Tool is selected. With the Polygon Tool selected, I have all these different options up here. And let's see, the option that I want is the sides. We'll have 7 sides, maybe 5 sides. And if we select the cogwheel here, we have these different options. I'm going to have the star selected. Indent the sides. We'll indent the sides by 91%. Turn off smooth indents. Right? Okay, now I can just click and drag anywhere. And just kind of create this star here and let go. Perfect. All right, now I'm going to hit my move tool again, or hit V, and just move this star to like right here. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is blur this. So I'll come up to Filter, Blur, and we'll choose Gaussian Blur once again. And yes, convert to a smart object. All right, and let's see, I'm going to turn that perfect, something just like that, okay? So I'm at a radius of 6.4 pixels. Hit OK. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I think I'm going to make this star a little bit smaller. So I'm going to make sure my light layer is selected. And I'm going to go ahead and just grab the transform controls here. Again, if yours aren't showing, just hit the show transform controls right here. And I'm going to adjust the size of this. Because I'm using a smart filter here on the shape, it's going to actually turn off the blur layer when I'm moving it. And you'll see a little warning about that in a second. All right, see? Just hit OK. And then I'm just going to shrink this down a little bit, like so. Okay, and then I'll move that right to the center. And then when I hit enter or return, the blur will pop back on. There we go. I just wanted a little beam of light right here, and then this little bit of a light star pattern right here. So that's kind of like synthwave heaven, okay? If you make it to right here, you get a DeLorean. Okay, so there you go. There's lots of techniques in here that I'm sure you can use in your own artwork. If you've gone through this whole tutorial and you've made something similar or something that was inspired by this, please put a link in the comments so that we can all see what you've got.